everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marie, and first I just want to say that I've been having some issues with my equipment. A few weeks ago there was problems with my computer, so I wiped the whole computer and then I had to upload all of my software again, or download it, whatever. And the software that I use to record is totally different than it was originally. And like right now I'm looking and the color looks okay, but for some reason the other day when I recorded, everything was super yellow and I thought it was just the monitor that I was looking at it on. And then I looked at it on my laptop monitor and I looked jaundiced and I was like, okay, that's not a good look. And I tried filters and things and it just looked really weird. So I'm like, okay, that's not good. And then also the audio was terrible. And right now I have the little microphone here. So hopefully the audio this time will turn out a lot better, because I had it clipped to my shirt where you couldn't see. It was slightly below where it is right now. And it sounded like it wasn't even plugged in, or I wasn't in the same room. It was like kind of echoey and distant. I'm like, what? So I'm not sure what was going on, because I'm using all the same things, but I think that one, just like some setting in the software that I'm using for my camera just was different. So that video just didn't turn out well. And then yesterday they called and gave us an update on how many eggs we have and everything. So I was just like, well, I'm going to just make one video out of it, because the info that we got yesterday doesn't make a huge difference and it wouldn't be enough for one video. So it just all kind of gets put together. So I'll do a quick recap. So we've been doing IVF and I've done all of the injections and everything. And last Saturday I did what they called the trigger shot, and that was 4, because it didn't fit all in one syringe. It was 4 syringes worth, and it had to go in my lower back on the side. They call that your buttocks. That's not my butt. My butt is not up that high, and I'm not fat right there. I was like, what? You know, my butt's down a little lower, and it's squishier. So I was just like, you want me to inject where? And so my husband was like, okay, you know, I'm going to help you. Obviously, I couldn't do this myself because it's in an awkward place. I can't like turn like that. And I was just like, okay. So the little chair that I'm sitting on isn't very tall. And I put it up against the side of my bed. And I just kind of leaned a little bit. You have to be standing when you do this. You can't be like laying down on the bed. So I kind of leaned forward, and that way I had something where I wasn't going to move too much, because the needle was huge. And I'll insert a picture here. I forgot to grab it when making the video. The ones that I was doing in my stomach for like over a week, those were little tiny needles. I decided to capture it on a video instead of just describing it or putting a photo, so you can see up close how big the trigger shot needle is compared to the other needle. The other needle is like the size of an insulin needle, and the trigger shot needle is like 3-4 times bigger. It's huge. So the first time Patrick did it, it did hurt, but after that, it wasn't so bad because he did it in the right place. But, you know, we were looking at it and freaking out. We're just like, oh my God, that is way too big. In the end, it wasn't too bad, but it does look intimidating. And I was kind of freaking out. I'm like, that's going to hurt so much. So my husband was like freaking out, and he was all sweaty. And for those of you who don't know him, he's a bald man. And you could see the sweat like glistening on top of his head when it was over. And he was just like, oh my God. And I hugged him. I'm like, it was okay. The first one hurt. He did it up a little too high. And so the next 3, I had him do it down a little lower, and it was better. It felt like it did on the stomach. The first one though, I was like, ow, I yelled so loud. He's like, oh my God. And it was just like sweating. And I was like, aw, you know, he doesn't want to hurt me. And it was just so sweet. And I'm going to cry. Monday morning, we went in to do the egg retrieval, and we got there about 7 in the morning, and we were actually probably about 10 minutes early, because they were like, you have to come in an hour and a half before egg retrieval. My time was 8:30 in the morning. So I'm like, okay, I have to be there 7. And there wasn't that much traffic, so we got there pretty quickly. And Google was like, it could take between 25 minutes to 50. And we're like, because of the corona, there aren't as many people on the road. So we got there fairly early. And I was just like, is this the same place? Because it's the same place I had been going when they were doing the ultrasounds to check on how my follicles were doing. So I was just like, They didn't say it was here. When they talked about it, they're like, so you'll come into the facility. And they didn't say that facility. They didn't say you're going to come here. So I was like, I have no idea where this is. And I didn't recognize the address when I put it in my phone as the same location. I wasn't paying attention. So, duh. So we got there and we waited for a few minutes until everybody started like opening the doors and stuff. And they had me go in and they're like, the first thing they do is like, we need to do a pregnancy test. I'm like, really? I've been abstaining and pumped full of hormones and all this stuff. It's like, all right, we'll do that. And then I barely peed. There was like not enough in there. And then they had me go back and they put the IV in. And then after they did that, my husband was able to come back in the room with me, and he had given them his specimen, which I teased him about because they told me the Friday before. This was so funny. The nurse was just like, okay, I'll give you a cup so he can collect at home, and you have to come in within an hour of collection. I'm like, we only live a half an hour away. That's not a problem. And she didn't give me the cup when I left, and I completely forgot about it. And then he asked the night before. I was like, I don't have a cup. I was like, oh no. I'm like, just get some Tupperware. I'm like, just clean it really well. He's like, no. So I was like, well, you can do it there. And he's just like, I'm like, everybody's going to see my hoo-ha. I'm like, you can go in a room alone. So he did that. And then they took me in. And this was funny. I assumed that they were going to roll me in on the bed that I was laying in. And the woman, I should say the nurse, she came and grabbed the IV bag, like the saline or whatever they were pumping me with. And she's like, okay, come with me. I'm like, what? Okay. I get to wander around. And she had me go to the bathroom. She's like, you need to pee again. I'm like, I barely peed the first time. I'm like, there's nothing. She's like, just try. I'm like, fine. And then we went back to the room where they did the procedure. And I laid down on the bed, and they had one stirrup, the left leg. I put my leg in there. And she's like, scoot down a little more. I'm like, okay. And then there was nowhere for me to put my right leg, so it was just kind of hanging there. And the anesthesiologist and her were talking, and they said something, and then I was out. I don't remember anything. And then like an hour later, I ended up waking up. So one of the concerns that they did have was when they were doing the ultrasounds before, they couldn't see my right ovary very well. They were having a really hard time. So they were like having me push on my stomach while they were trying to see it and everything. So they said if they can't get to it because they can't see it with the ultrasound, then they would have to do an incision on my stomach. But the doctor did say, well, you're going to be unconscious. He said, we'll be able to manipulate you while you're unconscious, so we should be able to get to it without having to actually do the incision. But when you wake up, if you do feel a pain there, it is a possibility that that's how we're going to have to go in. And I was like, okay, let's hope not. They didn't, but I was very sore. And when they had rolled me back in the room, my eyes weren't open, but I could hear people speaking. And the nurse was like, oh, she's not conscious yet. And I was like, I can hear you. She's like, okay, she's kind of awake. And so she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, it hurts. Like, I was really sore. And so she gave me something. And then a few minutes later, she's like, how's that? I'm like, it's much better. The like kind of throbbing that was going on down there was gone. And it still took me a few minutes to actually open my eyes. I could just hear everybody talking and walking around. And then eventually my husband came back in. And this part was a little foggy because I still was just coming out of the anesthesia, even though I was talking to people and stuff. It's like, I don't remember everything. I was kind of like, I don't know what's going on. And one of the things the nurse told us how many follicles they were able to get that were mature enough to turn into actual eggs. They had told me that there was 19 originally, and the doctor was able to get at 17 of them. And the nurse said that, and I was just like, okay. And then the doctor came back, and he's like, did anybody tell you? I was like, no, because I just had completely forgotten already like 10 minutes later. And he said that for my age, that was really good because he said normally with their practice, they only get between 4 to 7 from women my age. So I was like, that's awesome. I'm like, my eggs are overachievers. They inseminated them that day. And the next day they called us and they told us that out of the 17, 12 of them were able to inseminate properly. So then they grew them all last week, and on Saturday they froze them and they took some cells out to do testing. So on Sunday they called us to tell me how many that we actually got. So we had 3, they're called blastocysts. So we had 3 that were 5-day and 3 that were 6-day. So from the 12 we have 6 left. And from that we're gonna find out in 2 weeks how many we actually have to work with. Like if we'll have just 1 egg that doesn't have any genetic defects, or possibly 6. So we're hoping we have like 3. You know, I Googled like what the percentage is, and it's usually between 11% to, I think it was 66% of the eggs are viable for implantation after genetic testing. So we'll have like, you know, 11% of 6 is only, it's less than 1. So hopefully we get at least 1 egg, if not a few more, because we do want to have more than 1 baby. And also if we can have a few eggs, then we can implant 2, which will give us a 75% chance of having one of them survive and turn into an actual baby. So now my husband's just really, really impatient about the next 2 weeks. He's just like, I want to know now. I'm like, it takes time for them to do all this tests in the lab. And he's like, why can't they do it in 1 day? I'm like, can you do all your work in 1 day? And it's also the coronavirus too. So it's like all these labs, they're kind of busy. And so we just have to wait and see. But we're getting more excited and we have something to work with. So everything is going well. And so all of last week, I was really sore because of, like, I don't know exactly what they did when I was unconscious, but my stomach, it was like if I did 1,000 sit-ups in 1 day, and that lasted the entire week. And, you know, they didn't have to do any incisions or anything, but just getting up and walking to the bathroom and then going to sit back down, I was like winded and exhausted. So I just rested all of last week. And I have been paying attention to what's going on in the news and everything. And I'm like, I want to be out there and go to the protest or something, but I couldn't even stand for that long. So I'm feeling better this week. Maybe I will join one in my area. There was a woman on the corner. I had to run some errands today, and she had a sign, and I honked. Nobody else was like giving her a thumbs up or honking or anything, but she did have a Black Lives Matter sign, and I was just like, maybe tomorrow I'll go join her in the corner and, you know, something. I want to do something. So if you're protesting, keep it up, because cities are starting to pay attention and things are happening. And I will see you guys in about 2 weeks. I'm going to try to do another video sometime this week doing something else. But as far as the IVF updates, I won't have any for 2 more weeks until we get the genetic testing back. So bye, guys.